the silent stars, the morning mist clung to the crystal spires of Ethros like silk scarves dancing in the wind. Dr. Lyrian, Wind Whisper, spread her iridescent wings and glided between the towering biostructures that housed the Harmony Institute, her people's greatest center of learning. The Zephorians had built their civilization not with metal and stone, but with living crystal that responded to their harmonic frequencies, growing into impossible architectural symphonies that sang with the wind. Lyrian's webbed feet touched down on the observation platform just as her colleague, Resonance Keeper Ariel, projected a urgent harmonic pattern into the air. The crystalline structures around them picked up the frequency and amplified it into words that shimmered with distress. Lyrian, you must see this immediately. Ariel's harmonics trembled with fear. The deep listen array has detected something. Approaching from the void sectors. Lyrian folded her wings and followed Ariel into the Institute's heart, where massive biocrystal formations served as their most advanced detection equipment. The organic computers pulsed with bioluminescent data streams, painting the chamber in shifting patterns of blue and green light. What she saw in the data made her hollow bones ache with dread. By the first song, she whispered, her own harmonics causing the nearby crystals to resonate with alarm. How many ships? Not ships, Ariel replied, his voice barely maintaining. Harmony, entities. The patterns match the old archives, the ones we thought were mythology. It's the Shadowmoor Horde, Lyrian, they found us. The data streams showed a writhing mass of darkness approaching their system, moving faster than any conventional fleet. The Shadowmoor weren't a species in any traditional sense. They were a parasitic collective that consumed entire civilizations, absorbing their knowledge, their technology, their very essence before moving on to the next target. Within the hour, every elder of the Zephyrian Council had gathered in the Great Resonance Chamber, their combined voices creating a harmony of fear and determination. Elder Songweaver, oldest of their kind, stood at the chamber's center, her ancient wings bearing scars from the early days when Ethros was still being tamed. Children of the wind, she began, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. Our long peace may be at an end. Show them what the deep listen has found. Lyrian activated the chamber's projection system, filling the air with holographic representations of the approaching horror. Gasps and discordant notes rippled through the assembly as they witnessed the scale of what came for them. 23 systems have gone silent in the past lunar cycle, Lyrian reported, struggling to maintain harmony. In her voice, Thraction, Millennial Garden, New Concordial consumed. The pattern is consistent. The Shadowmoor arrives, feeds, leaves nothing but empty space. Elder Skyright's wings drooped with despair. What of the Galactic Peacekeeping Alliance? Surely. They gone, interrupted communications, Master Gale, her voice cracking like ice. All GPA forces have withdrawn beyond the neutral barriers. No responses to our transmissions. No help coming. The chamber fell silent, except for the low harmonic hum that Zephyrians made when deeply distressed. Their entire civilization was built on the principle of harmony with each other, with their world, with the galaxy itself. They had no weapons, no military, no concept of warfare beyond ancient songs that spoke of darker times. We could evacuate, suggested Elder Stormwing, though his voice carried no hope. Take what ships we have, scatter to the outer colonies, and achieve what Songweaver's ancient voice cut through the discussion like a blade of sound. The Shadowmoor doesn't stop. It doesn't negotiate. It hunts until it consumes everything. We would only delay the inevitable. Dr. Windwhisper studied the tactical projections, her scientific mind trying to find solutions where none existed. There has to be something. Some weapon, some defense we haven't considered. There is one thing, Songweaver said quietly, her words causing the chamber's crystals to dim, but it comes with a price that may be worse than death itself. She activated an ancient data core, one that Lyrian had never seen before. The projections changed, showing records in scripts so old that most Cephrians had forgotten how to read them. Images appeared of strange, angular beings that looked nothing like any species in current galactic records. Long before our ancestors settled Ethros, others visited this world. They called themselves the Forgeborn, and they were fleeing something that terrified them, beings from what they called Deathworlds. Before they left, they built a beacon, not for communication within our galaxy, but beyond it, to places where survival itself is a daily battle. The chamber erupted in discordant harmonics of fear and confusion. Every civilized species had heard legends of death worlds, so hostile that they supposedly created beings of unimaginable violence and cunning. Most dismissed such tales as propaganda or mythology. The beacon was sealed with warnings, Songweaver continued, her voice heavy with reluctance. Contact the death world, survivors only in the most desperate circumstances, they said. For once awakened, they cannot be controlled or contained. Elder Skywright's wings fluttered with agitation. Even if such beings exist, why would they help us? What could we offer warriors from death worlds? Perhaps nothing, Songweaver admitted. But the alternative is certain extinction. Before anyone could respond, the chamber's alarm crystals began screaming in frequencies that made every Zephorian present fold their wings in pain. Communications Master Gale frantically interfaced with the Deep Listen array, her harmonics becoming increasingly shrill with panic. Shadowmoor scouts, she announced. 3 entities have entered our outer system. They're feeding on our orbital research stations. Through the chamber's crystal walls, they could see tiny flashes of light in the distance they're furthest, outposts being consumed. The Shadowmoor moved like living darkness, each entity a writhing mass of tentacles and feeding organs that could drain the life from entire worlds. How long until the main swarm arrives? Songweaver asked, though her voice suggested she already knew. 18 hours, Gale whispered. Maybe less. The elder looked round the chamber at faces filled with despair, then turned to Lyrian. Dr. Windwhisper, your expertise in ancient technologies may be our only hope. Will you help me activate the beacon? Lyrian felt her hollow bones grow cold. Everything in her scientific training told her this was madness. They would be summoning unknown entities from beyond their galaxy, beings that might be even worse than the Shadowmoor. But as another flash lit the chamber, another outpost consumed, she realized they had no choice. I'll need access to the forbidden archives, she said, and transportation to the beacon site. Granted, Songweaver replied immediately. We'll take my personal flyer. 3 hours later, Lyrian found herself soaring through Ethros' upper atmosphere in a craft barely large enough for 2 Zephorians. The planet spread out below them, beautiful and doomed, its crystal cities gleaming in the light of their binary suns. According to the ancient records, the beacon was hidden in the Howling Peaks, a range of mountains where the winds created natural harmonics that had driven early settlers to madness. They landed on a plateau, surrounded by jagged spires of stone, that sang mournful notes in the eternal winds. The beacon's location was marked only by subtle geometric patterns in the rock signs that the Forgeborn had left for those who knew how to look. "Here," Songweaver said, placing her webbed hand on what appeared to be solid stone. Her harmonics reached frequencies that made the rock itself respond, revealing a hidden passage that descended into darkness. The tunnel beyond was clearly artificial, its walls covered in scripts that hurt to look at directly. Emergency lighting activated as they passed, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move independently. At the tunnel's end, they found a chamber that defied comprehension. The beacon was massively the size of a small building, and clearly not of Zephyrian origin. Its surface was covered in angular patterns that seemed to shift when viewed peripherally, and it hummed with a power that made their bones ache. Control surfaces, written in multiple scripts, surrounded a central activation console. The instructions are encoded in base 12 mathematics, Lyrian said, studying the ancient manual that Songweaver had brought. "I can understand most of it, but some of these warnings..." She paused, her harmonics becoming uncertain. "It speaks of beings that turn planets into weapons and wage war with the fury of dying stars. Above them, they could hear the distant rumble of atmospheric entry. The Shadowmoor's advanced scouts were beginning their feeding runs on the outer settlements. We're out of time," Songweaver said simply. "Begin the activation sequence." Lyrian's hands trembled as she input their system coordinates and began composing. Their message. How did one appeal to unknown beings from death worlds? What could possibly motivate such creatures to travel across the void to help strangers? "Message encoded," she announced. "But I must warn you, once this signal is sent, we cannot recall it. Whatever comes in response will know exactly where we are." Through the chamber's single crystal window, they could see the glow of burning cities on the horizon. The main Shadowmoor swarm had arrived ahead of schedule, and Ethros was beginning to die. "Send it," Songweaver commanded. Lyrian pressed the activation rune. The beacon erupted with power that made their harmonic senses scream in agony. Energy coursed through patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than their minds could process, and reality itself seemed to ripple around them. The signal punched through normal space-time like a spear of pure will, carrying their desperate message beyond the galaxy's edge to places where survival was earned through strength and cunning. Far away, in the cold emptiness between galaxies, something ancient and terrible received their call for help. When Earth answers Admiral Sarah. Chen had been dreaming of rain again, the acid storms of New Singapore that had killed her parents when she was 7. The emergency klaxons dragged her back to consciousness in the command quarters of the UTSF Determination, humanity's most advanced deep space vessel. She'd been in cryosleep for 3 months, letting her crew handle routine patrols along the quarantine zone's edge. "Admiral," came the voice of her AI companion, Atlas. "Emergency Protocol 7 has been activated. We've received a deep space distress signal." Sarah sat up, her augmented spine automatically compensating for the transition from horizontal sleep. At 45, she carried the scars of humanity's violent rise from their death world's cybernetic implants that replaced organs damaged by Earth's toxic environment, bone density modifications that let her survive in high-gravity combat zones, and neural enhancements that allowed her to process tactical data at superhuman speeds. "From whom?" she asked, pulling on her uniform. The black fabric automatically adjusted to her body temperature and began monitoring her vital signs. "Unknown. Species, Admiral. They call themselves The signal origin is approximately 800 light-years beyond the quarantine zone boundary." Sarah paused. The quarantine zone was humanity's prison, though the Galactic Council preferred to call it a designated development area. After the Arcturus incident 15 years ago, when a single human battle group had defeated 3 different alien armadas in the same day, the galaxy's civilized species had politely but firmly requested that humanity limit their expansion. They claimed human warfare was too brutal, too adaptable, too terrifyingly effective for peaceful coexistence. "Show me the message," Sarah commanded. Her quarters' walls became transparent, displaying the translated distress call in holographic text. As she read, her expression hardened. Another peaceful species facing extinction. Another civilization crying out for help while the galaxy's supposed protectors retreated to safety. "Contact Captain Rivera on the Retribution and Colonel Martinez of the Orbital Marines," she ordered. "Emergency staff meeting in 15 minutes. The Determination's briefing room was a study in controlled aggressions, dark walls lined with tactical displays, chairs designed for rapid deployment, air that carried the subtle scent of weapon lubricants and recycled oxygen. When Sarah entered, her senior staff snapped to attention with the precision that only came from surviving Earths. Endless training grounds. Captain Elena Rivera commanded the fleet's most heavily armed vessel, the Retribution. Her face bore ritual scars from the Siberian territorial wars, and her augmented eyes glowed with tactical overlays. Colonel Miguel Martinez led the 2nd Orbital Marine Division, men and women whose genetic modifications allowed them to fight in any environment, from the crushing depths of ocean trenches to the airless void of space. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah began, "we've received a distress call from beyond the zone. A species called the Zephyrians is facing extinction from something called the Shadowmoor Horde." She activated the room's central display, showing the data they'd managed to extract from the alien signal. The images of the approaching threat made her staff lean forward with professional interest. "Parasitic collective entities," she continued. 23 star systems consumed in the past month. No survivors, no negotiations, no mercy. Captain Rivera studied the tactical data with the intensity of a predator evaluating prey. "Where's the Galactic Peacekeeping Alliance? This should be their responsibility." "Nowhere to be found," Sarah replied grimly. "According to our intelligence networks, all GPA forces have withdrawn beyond the neutral barriers. They're abandoning the outer rim to save themselves." The room fell silent, except for the subtle hum of life support systems. Every person present understood the implications. The galaxy's self-proclaimed protectors were retreating, leaving peaceful species to face horrors alone. Colonel Martinez was the first to speak. "Admiral, request permission to begin fleet mobilization." "We haven't been authorized to leave the zone," Captain Rivera pointed out, though her tone suggested she was merely stating facts, not objecting. Sarah smiled the cold expression that Earthborn humans wore when they'd decided someone needed to die. "Let me make a call." The quantum entanglement communicator took several minutes to establish connection with Earth Command. When Fleet Admiral James Morrison appeared on screen, his weathered face immediately told Sarah everything she needed to know. "Sarah," he said without preamble, "I assume you're calling about the distress signal." "Yes, sir. Requesting authorization for humanitarian intervention." Morrison was quiet for a moment, his augmented fingers drumming against his desk. Behind him, Sarah could see the skyline of New Geneva through reinforced windows, one of humanity's rebuilt cities, constructed to withstand the poisonous storms and seismic instability that made Earth a Class 12 death world. "This is the 47th distress call we've received this month," Morrison said finally. all from beyond the zone, all mentioning the same enemy. The pattern suggests a coordinated campaign of extermination. What about the Galactic Council? Sarah asked, though she suspected the answer. Morrison's expression darkened. 3 weeks ago, they voted to temporarily suspend all peacekeeping operations in contested sectors. Publicly, they claim it's for fleet maintenance and strategic reorganization. And unofficially, our intelligence suggests they've made an arrangement with whatever's behind these attacks. The Shadowmoor gets free rein in the Outer Rim, and the core worlds remain untouched. Sarah felt the familiar cold fury that Earthborn humans experienced when faced with cowardice. Masquerading as her crew tensed, recognizing the change in their commander's biochemistry through subtle pheromone shifts that their enhanced senses could detect. "Sir, requesting clarification of our rules of engagement." Morrison smiled, the expression that had earned him the nickname Glacier during the Resource Wars. "Sarah, I'm transmitting sealed orders now. Operation Sanctuary is authorized." New data flooded Sarah's command console. As she reviewed it, her eyebrows rose. "Sir, these orders authorize a full battle group deployment. 12 ships. That's correct. The Retribution, New Stalingrad, Okinawa, and 8 others. Full marine complements. Total war authorization." Captain Rivera leaned forward. "Admiral Morrison, the Galactic Council will object to this level of force deployment." Morrison's smile became predatory. "Let them. They've abandoned their responsibilities, which means the old agreements are void. Besides, they should remember why we were asked to limit our expansion in the first place." The communication ended, leaving Sarah's staff to absorb the implications. Operation Sanctuary wasn't just a rescue mission, it was a statement. Humanity was returning to the galaxy's stage, and they were coming armed for war. Atlas, Sarah, commanded, begin fleet mobilization. Full combat protocols. Over the next 6 hours, 12 ships emerged from hyperspace at the rally point with mechanical precision. Each vessel was a testament to humanity's violent evolution armor, designed to withstand the crushing pressures of ocean trenches, weapons systems that could function in any environment, life support that could keep crews alive in conditions that would kill most galactic species within minutes. The fleet represented humanity's core. Military philosophy, overkill was underrated, paranoia was wisdom, and the best defense was overwhelming offensive capability. "All ships report ready," Captain Rivera announced. Course plotted for the Zephyrian system. Sarah studied the tactical display one final time. According to their intelligence, the Shadowmoor operated through fear and overwhelming numbers. They were used to facing species that surrendered quickly, or died quietly. They had never encountered humans. "Execute jump," she ordered. Space twisted around them as the fleet entered hyperspace, leaving behind the safety of the quarantine zone. Ahead lay a battle that would remind the galaxy why Earth was classified as a death world and why its children were the most feared. Warriors in known space in the Zephyrian system. The Shadowmoor horde continued its feeding, unaware that something was coming. Something that had learned to fight on a world that killed the weak every single day. Something that viewed impossible odds not as defeat, but as Tuesday. The humans were coming, and they were bringing gifts, war gifts, asterisk.